Welcome to the podcast Consultancy Elite. The podcast is hosted by M2 Advisory and presented by Marleen Somerharjo. We engage with our lead consultants across the world, discussing business strategies, future solutions, macroeconomic developments, and personal beliefs. Dear everyone, welcome today to another episode of the podcast. Today I have my special guest and I feel most honored to have him on my show. I will first tell you how we met, and after that I will introduce him. In 2014, I visited Suriname to expand my business. I had several meetings within the banking, insurance and also oil and gas sector. The largest export product commodity trading of Suriname are oil and gas, and Staatsolie is the biggest company to deliver this product. Staatsolie was becoming a billion-dollar business within Suriname and the CARICOM, and the CEO appointed then was very much focused on sustainability and transition towards a less dependent ecosystem. That I found most interesting. Whereas it's also my mission to facilitate companies in their journey to sustain and create financially viable solutions for longevity. I have the honor to meet Mr. Rudolf Elias, and today my guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Rudolf Elias. Even within his busy schedule in Suriname and now from Italy, Rudolf takes time to discuss this period and vision with Staatsolie and future impact. He will take you in his journey, in his career, what are his learning points, and what is next, being retired, however not tired at all. Goedemorgen Rudolf, Favaka, or como stai?
Goedemorgen.
Morning.
Marleen, you want me to do it in Dutch or you want me to do it in English?
I would prefer.
I mean, both are fine with me. Huh?
I would prefer English.
Okay, fine.
And just introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Rudolf Elias. I have a very long introduction, but let me try to make it very short. I was born in Holland, but I was raised in Suriname. When I was 17, I went back to Holland and studied at the Technical University of Eindhoven. I did there the building engineering, but in the last years, especially business administration. After that, I started working for an international contractor. I worked for that international contractor for 20 years worldwide on projects. And in 20 years after that, I stopped working for them and I started working for BHP Billiton. For BHP Billiton, I also did projects for them, mostly in Suriname, but I was based also in other countries, like in Australia. I was based in Brisbane for a year. I was based in Montreal for 2 years. And after my period in BHP Billiton, Staatsolie requested me to come over to build a refinery. And for that refinery, I went to Rome in order to do the engineering. And after that, the construction in Suriname. After the construction of the refinery, and when the refinery was working well, Staatsolie requested me to remain as the CEO in order to transition Staatsolie from a very central, organized company that was very based on the public sector, and towards a very lean and mean world-class company. And we started that journey. It's now almost 7 years ago. And when I retired in the 1st of June this year from Staatsolie as the CEO, I mean, we were there. We are a world-class company at the moment. Our financials are based on the financials of Ernst & Young in order to come to the capital markets. So they are very scrutinized by one of the big four. And our whole organization is decentralized, asset-based. Everybody is making a profit. Everybody knows exactly what they have to do in order to succeed. And what, of course, is the nicest thing that we have in the past 6 years is Staatsolie, together with its partners, found a massive amount of oil in the offshore. And we are at this moment busy appraising that, and soon the development will start. That is more or less who I am. So I worked all over the world, in almost all countries. I worked in Europe. I worked in Australia, the US, in South America, and the Caribbean a lot.
And we also have a similarity. I know that you said you started your career also in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Yes, correct. We started there when I started at Balas Nedam, the contractor. They were busy building the bridge between, it was more a causeway between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And I was there on the engineering part as the youngest engineer. Yes.
Yes, I love to hear that. But your resume is very impressive. So, and I know I knew you from the beginning, starting at Staatsolie, and you had a very clear vision on how you wanted to present Staatsolie, and this is also what you left behind. So I was just wondering, looking back at your career at Staatsolie, did it really fit within your life purpose? Because you have this background in engineering, in oil and gas, and Staatsolie, obviously. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so I always say I am extremely successful as a CEO of Staatsolie. I can say that now that I'm extremely successful, that I was extremely successful because now I'm retired. But I also keep saying to the people that that everything between being a very successful manager and being a very unsuccessful manager, this also has to do a little bit of luck. I mean, I changed Staatsolie from a very centralized, organized, and very slow-moving company towards a lean and mean company that was there, ready to start the offshore business and ready to be the partner of choice for the offshore business. And we spent a lot of money in doing that. I mean, we transitioned Staatsolie, but there was a lot of money involved in that. We also made a complete new department, a new asset called the offshore department. We hired an expatriate for that in order to organize it in such a way like we will find oil, but of course we didn't yet at that moment. I mean, we're busy for about 1 year with hiring somebody for that post, and you cannot believe it, but after a year, the guy came from England. We hired him somewhere in November. He of course, he had a certain period that he had to resign. He came on the 15th of January to Suriname, and on the 8th of January, we had our first discovery. So, I mean, it just fitted, and everything just fitted. And that was, of course, the main reason why everybody said, wow, Rudolf, you were very successful. But on the other hand, I also say that, let's say we would not have found oil, then everybody would say, this guy spent all these millions and all these hours, and everybody had to work day and night in order to make a transition. For what? You know, and that is also the funny part of it. So yes, I am successful, but there is also a little bit of luck in it. Now, I must say that Staatsolie is at this moment, I mean, a lean organization. We survived the last oil dip where the prices were negative, and still we made a reasonable good profit. So Staatsolie is at this moment stronger than ever. In the good years, we also invested, of course, in not only in the downstream, but especially in the diversification. So we are not only an oil company, but we are also now an energy company, because we are producing 75% of the electricity of Suriname, one with some thermal capacity. But our biggest capacity at this moment is, of course, the lake, the hydro lake, and that's, of course, a renewable energy. And we are very proud of that. And we would really like to build in the future on being more a renewable energy company. The transition we have to make from oil and towards renewables, and we have started that transition. And I'm very proud of that, I must say. And of course, we invested in a gold mine. And as everybody knows, gold and oil are always living in some kind of equilibrium. When gold goes down, oil goes up, and when oil goes up, when oil goes down, gold goes up. So that balances also our portfolio very well. That's one of the reasons why we did also in 2020, my last year, where we just had an annual report coming out. We did very well.
You already touched upon a little bit on the future plans, and I wanted to discuss that in more in depth with you, because I find that very interesting. Have making this transition from being very independent for a very traditional resources to now becoming a very more future sustainable environment, and creating this with the transition that you're making to more renewable energy. So I really love that transition, and it's like you said, it's just when you're a leader, people will just often remind you that if you're successful, that was just due to luck. And if it's not, you were just not a very bad leader. But I think in this, it's just because you mentioned it, it was driven from your purpose. Then that took you to another level, and that made you have the vision about how you would like to create this whole situation. So you did. And from that perspective on, I think it's not about luck, it's just all about having all the right pieces in places, because this is something Suriname as a whole, as an entire nation and country has envisioned from the beginning, from the startup. So I think that is just what you embodied within your leadership during Staatsolie.
Yes, I tend to agree on that. But the only thing what I always say to people is that yes, you have to have a vision. You need to get your people behind your vision in order to move your company towards where you want to go. But without luck, you are nowhere. So I mean, it is also a part. And of course, and people say, yes, Rudolf, but you are forcing the luck to come to you. That is possible, but still, I mean, you need it. If we would not have found oil, but would have found oil 1 year later, I would not be so successful in the things that I did. But it is, and that I just want to emphasize that it is not. You need in life, you need a little bit luck to be very successful. You need a vision. You need to be consistent in your vision, but you need also a little bit of luck. And we had that. But at this moment, I can tell you that Suriname and SAS, we are moving forward in life and in the world. And I think that if you look at Suriname 10 years from today, that we will be a very successful our country, and most probably in our province, because also Guyana is doing the right things at the moment in order to get the money towards the people. That also gave me, of course, from the beginning, the vision that I always said that, look, I love the fact that we will find oil and that it will prosper the country. Let's please be sure that it will prosper all the people of Suriname, so that we have, and I mean not my generation or not even the generation of my children, but the generations that come after that, and the generations that come after that generation and after that generation. And that will only be done if we have a good sovereign wealth fund, and if we set that up in such a way that we will be able to save 80% of the money for the generations to come. And one of the big things that I always say about that, and if you ask about me about the future, yes, oil is nice, but it is money. Money can corrupt people. So we have to be very careful for that. The second thing, what I say is, let's also try to make use of the gas. Gas is a little bit cleaner than oil, and gas will create employment. But one of the most important things that we should understand is that all our natural resources are finite, except for our biodiversity. And Suriname is still the greenest country in the world. So our biodiversity is worth billions if you look 50 years ahead. And if we save that today and tomorrow, if we use part of the money that comes from oil in order to just completely stop logging and small scale mining, and we just save the biodiversity for the future, then I can guarantee you that also the generations, 10 generations from now, we will still enjoy the infinite natural resource that we have in the biodiversity. And if we can work together with French Guyana, which should not be so difficult because French Guyana is France, and Guyana, who also has a lot of money at this moment due to oil. And if we can work together with them and create one nice Amazon biodiversity, which we will not touch anymore for stupid things like logging and small scale mining, then I am positive that with renewable energy, if we put enough of our effort in renewable energy and we put part of the money that we own with the oil into our biodiversity and saving biodiversity for the coming generations, Suriname will be the example for the world. We will not only be the greenest country, but we will also be the example for the world. And I am, I am very passionate about that. I also try to work together with Conservation International and WWF. I gave them, I work for Conservation International at the moment. I'm one of their special advisors and on a consultancy basis, just for them to also understand how does an oil company think? How does a multinational work? Why do they work like that? And why do they think like that? How do politicians think? Because it is also sometimes difficult to understand how a politician think. And of course, since I worked for Staats in a CEO position for longer than 6 years, it was also, of course, one of the things that you have to understand how politicians work and how they think, and what is important for them.
I know I can resonate with that. There are two elements that I would really like to emphasize on this. Your visionary view on this. I really love that. We really resonate on how we need to think from an overarching overview and just taking that and reflect that within the future, and just saying everything that we have, use that as your source, as your fundament, and take that to the next level. So that is something that I really agree. And just in Suriname, we both know that politics and business are very much connected, because this is such a small environment and small community in this. And I can really imagine that it really influences you as being a leader or being the CEO, from being quite independent on the politicals or on the government. So it really needs you to think from your point of view, what would I like to achieve for Staatsolie, and then take into consideration what is needed for the country as a whole, as in its entireness. Also, think out and rippling out to the environment, to South America in this. So I can imagine your position in this, which is it's a difficult one, but still you managed to survive for 6 years, and
Yes.
like you said, so. You already touched upon your future plans, but can you please discuss it more in depth? Just how do you see the gas and also the biodiversity and those connected with each other, and taking that to a next level, that we can really see the difference also from an economic point of view, because it's like you said, there are jobs and employment with involved. So there are future plans that can really benefit the whole region and environment.
Yeah. So the what because it is step by step. You have to go there. At this moment, of course, you have people that work in the logging, you have people that work in the small scale mining. But since the oil boom will come soon, they will be able to earn a lot more money, a lot closer to home than they do at the moment in the jungle. So giving the people that work for the logging and work at the small scale mining a job will not be that difficult. Uh, it is more the companies that we have to buy out, and we have to do that on a step-by-step basis without it costing money, of course, for the government. So you have to keep thinking about how can I sell part of the carbon credits that I will earn by not logging in order to compensate the government and the companies for the losses that they will make because they have to stop logging. This is the beginning, because oil will only start flowing 4 years from today, and the money will only start flowing 7 years from today. So when the money starts flowing, you can use part of the money in order to buy off the big loggers and the concessions of the small scale miners. The big scale miners are not such a big problem because they do think about the environment when they do their job, and it is, yes, they still destroy part of the biodiversity, but it's only a very, very, very small part. It's not remotely like what the loggers do. So we want to concentrate first on the loggers, then on the small scale miners, and then use the indigenous people and the tribals in order also to contain what we have, and in order also to get, and this is now long-term thinking. Yeah, I mean, now you're talking about 10, 15, maybe 20 years from today, that you can get some kind of an ecotourism where you bring people into the interior, and that the indigenous people and the tribals will be the guides in order to guide small groups through the jungle in a safe manner, in order for us to to enjoy the biodiversity. That is one of the things that we can do in order to make money for the country long term. And I think that, yeah, a lot of people will say, but because that's also a fight, huh? But I think that oil will be part of the energy mix for the coming 100 years. Maybe not oil, but for sure hydrocarbons. So gas will be a big player in it, but so will oil. And when oil, and it will slowly, maybe in 2040 or 2050, we will have the peak demand for oil, and then it will slowly go down. It will not go as rapidly as we all hope that it will be, because we should remember that, yes, Europe and the United States have a certain amount of energy that they use, and we are happy with the amount of energy that we use per person. But there is still Africa, and there is still the Far East. And in Africa and the Far East, you still have billions of people that live below the poverty level because they don't have access to energy. And I mean, they also want to have this nice life with full of energy. And yes, most of it will be done by, I hope, renewables. But the request for energy will keep growing, and the renewables will be a bigger and bigger and bigger part in the spectrum, but oil will remain a part. And how far and how fast that goes, that remains to be seen. I hope it will be small, even though I am, of course, because people say, yeah, but you are the CEO of an oil company. How can you say that? I said, yes, but you also have to think about the bigger picture. And since we will always try to be at the lowest cost quartile, and that's the lowest 25% of the oil producers in the world, you have to be in that part If you are not, don't invest in it. Because if you are in that lower part, you will remain there for the coming 100 years. I am positive.
That's a very good point. And it's also, like you said, it's just not thinking about having the position, such as being, well, I'm the CEO, but it's also thinking about the environmental impact that you're responsible for. And
Yes.
that is, to me, a very important topic. I would like to discuss it because you have a very clear vision on this. So my question to you is, how do you envision environmental impact and use your powerful knowledge about oil and gas and biodiversity to educate others? And
when you said it right, because when you are the CEO of an oil company, you can force people in order to make the good decisions about going to renewables and going towards less environmental impact. But when you talk to politicians and when you talk to the people are outside of Staatsolie, and also to the people outside of Suriname, demand anymore. You have to educate. But what is even more important, you have to influence. So you have to find ways to influence people in order to think differently. You have to find ways in order to influence people, in order to say the right things to the right people at the right time. And I always say, and if I start screaming, biodiversity is our infinite natural resource, which is the most valuable one and which will be there forever, then I hope that, I think that people from my age will say he's bullshitting, but young people should be attracted by that. I want to plant the seed into people of 14, 15, 16, up to 20, 25 years old, because they will be able to make the change towards saving our biodiversity. And they will understand how important it is in order to have this biodiversity preserved. So, and that's influencing. So what I try to do is I try to influence people, and that is also working with NGOs like WWF and CI. Of course, they have hundreds of people that are a lot smarter than I am in order to understand better how they can influence people. But I can do that best in Suriname and Guyana, because I grew up there. So I know how the people think. So it is for me a lot easier. And I know, of course, how the politicians think. So in order to influence the people there, I can assist NGOs like WWF and CI to make the right decisions and to say the right things in order to have the young people behind us.
And those are the future leaders. So it's very good
Yes.
that you focus on them. And you see this, you really see this movement that is already being created within the youth, among the youth, really being very conscious of what is now happening. So it's very good that you focus on them, because they are the future leaders, and they can take this movement to the next level.
Yes, they will take the movement to a next level. I am positive. I am positive that young people understand a lot better that we only have one Earth. And yes, of course, Elon Musk thinks that we can go to Mars and live there. I doubt that we can do that, but I think that we can reverse all the damage that we did to the planet if we start doing that sooner, the better.
Yes, you really need to start today, actually. Really thinking,
Yes.
being more conscious about. I do say this, and I'm a very frequent traveler. So, but on the other hand, it's just there. It's the small things that matters. It's not only the big things. Obviously, if you're a business woman or whatsoever, you need to travel the world. But you can also think it from a small level and really focus on yourself, what you can influence in this, and then talk about it in a very clear and natural way that you make people responsible and feel that you know what is really bothering them. Because I see within the youth, they really feel that they are left out in the discussion. But if we just take them and make them responsible and accountable, and they will take their responsibility.
Yes, I fully agree on that. So that's that is, if you ask me what is that you would like to do in the coming 10 years, is to try to influence a lot more people with the knowledge that I have of the business society, in order to make politicians and young people understand what is important for the future of our country. And even if I can reach only 10% of the politicians, but 90% of the young people, I think that I will be successful.
I think it's a trademark, because they are the future. So
yes.
We in Suriname, we know that it's a very well-established government, but on the other hand, they're also getting older. So we really need to focus on the youth and on the adults, young adults in this.
And we need to focus on the different things. We don't need to focus anymore on the old way of doing business.
No, the world is expanding. So it took Staatsolie to a more international company, but Suriname tends to be more isolated. That I find very regrettable, because we really have lots of resources to offer. Being a serious partner within the world economy, having all the things that we can utilize, and also that we can export and give back to the world, is something that we really need to think about. And just like you're busy with this plan, and that is so needed for having a plan in place and execute on this, and also take into consideration the environmental impact. Those are the elements that are really needed now.
Yes, I fully agree there. I mean,
I know that
we have to start doing that a lot more. We have to start thinking that a lot more, and I think that we need a lot more of our older managerial CEOs in order to educate the young people on what is important and what is not. I fully agree there.
True, as a role model.
Yeah,
it's a very good question to ask you. I wanted to know, how would you like to be remembered by? As, for example, a son or a father, or personal as a leader? Just tell my audience.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people in Suriname will remember me as the guy who found oil, because I kept saying for 4 years, we will find oil, we have to be prepared, and in the end, I think that nobody believed it anymore, except the people of Staatsolie. And then when it came, then suddenly everybody said, wow, he was right all the time. So I think that I will be remembered in Suriname as he was the guy who found the oil for us, because he told us that all the time. If you ask me, do you want to be remembered by that? Then I say, no, only if part of that money will be used to save our biodiversity. So if I will be remembered by that, people will say, yes, but Rudolf always said, I want to be remembered by Rudolf and not by Mr. Elias or one of them. Rudolf always said, we have to take part of the money that we own and that we earn with our oil in order to save our biodiversity. And if we do, and 75 years from today, somebody said yes, because we have this biodiversity, because that seed was planted by the CEO of Staatsolie who said, I mean, that would be wonderful. I mean, even if it is not me that they remember, but if we saved our biodiversity 75 years from now, that would be for me a great thing. And my children will, of course, remember that, because I keep telling them that bringing them to the interior of Suriname and telling them, look, this is what we have and we should save it.
I I will remember you by this, because we have the same mission and vision in this. I, from my business perspective, would like to have companies being financially viable and sustain and just create this longevity that they have, that they're capable in achieving their goals. And this is actually what you have the same in mind. People would like to remember you, what is the impact that you created, and how can people sustain and live from there on.
Yeah. No, I fully agree there. Yes.
I love that. Is there something that you want to mention besides of this?
Yeah, no, I think that Suriname is at this moment on a crossroad. We either can go left and we become Venezuela and Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, or we can go right and we can become Chile or Norway, or one of the good countries that use the money of their natural resources in a wise way. And that depends a little bit on politicians. I also keep saying that to the politicians, you have to start a broad discussion with all social partners, politicians, oppositions, the business society, the unions. Everybody should come together and say, okay, now we are going to get all this money. What are we going to do with it? How much are we going to put in this fund? Let's agree on that. Let's agree on a percentage, or let's agree on an amount. But let's agree on how much we are going to put into the fund, and then how much are we going to consume. If we don't say how much we are going to consume, and if we don't say on what we want to consume it, we will not be able to make plans. And yes, I always take the example of healthcare. If you give $50 million to the healthcare, the hospitals of Suriname today, they will spend it in 2 months on all things that are very needed. But if you give them 50 million the year after, they will have a problem spending it. And if the third year you give them another 50 million and they have not started today with making plans what they will do with the 50 million year after year after year, they will not be able to spend it, and it will give corruption, because then you have $50 million on the bank. You have no projects to spend it on. You have no people to think about projects. People will steal it. So you will get corruption. So if you don't want to have corruption, if you don't want to become Venezuela or Nigeria or Equatorial Guinea, start today with the discussion and make it something national. So make something national and say, this is the plan. And no politician will, yeah, you can go a little bit to the left or you can go a little bit to the right, but the basic principles remain. And if the basic principles remain, we can start preparing ourselves for all this money that comes in. So this is the thing that I would like to end with, is that without this grand social discussion about what we will do with the money, we will not be successful in keeping our biodiversity. We will not be successful in having a good sovereign welfare fund, and we will not be successful not becoming Venezuela or Equatorial Guinea. We will be oil money will be a curse for Suriname and not the blessing. Yeah, I mean, not for this generation, but it will be a curse.
Suriname is in my prayers and in my thoughts in this, and I do see little movements, and hopefully these little movements can become more bigger movements that can impact it in a positive way. And that is still my hope, and that is still my wish and my dream for Suriname, because we really deserve that. It's a beautiful, beautiful country with such
beautiful country.
Yes,
only 500,000 people.
It's like you said, the most cleanest on earth.
Yeah.
We should be very blessed and should be very humble and grateful what we have. But probably this mindset will be created at some point. I would have to thank you for this beautiful conversation that we had, and hopefully see you soon, Matt.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the podcast Consultancy Elite. For information, follow us at m2advisory.nl and Instagram at m2advisory. Send us an email or DM for further assistance.